All right, I'd like to call to order the March 21st, 2018 meeting of the Royal Oak Downtown Development Authority. At this time, I'd like to open up item number 2, public comment. Let the chair recognize you, raise your hand, come to the podium, please just state your name and address. Anybody out there, public comment up front.
Good afternoon. My name is Suzanne Wiggins. I'm the Executive Director of Stagecrafters located at the Historic Baldwin Theater, 415 South Lafayette, directly across from the 6th Street parking structure. And I'm here today, I know that you're familiar with Stagecrafters. We've been in the community since 1985. Maybe you've been in the theater. We do 10 outstanding productions a year. And those productions are actually 100% created by our more than 300 volunteer members. So basically, we couldn't operate without those volunteers. And these are individuals that live both in the community and outside the community who work full-time jobs in every area, accounting, engineering, IT, teaching, healthcare, and basically are very vested in our mission of making the performing arts accessible to the greater community. So they volunteer their times in the evenings and on weekends to actually create our product. And in January, the DDA put forth a proposal that went in front of the Royal Oak City Commission, indicating that there was interest in discontinuing the discount parking passes that our volunteers currently use. I think there was a misunderstanding that basically what happens is that the city invoices Stagecrafters and that Stagecrafters pays the invoice, so therefore, you know, that we were coming before the city commission to recommend that not happen because it would be a hardship on our organization. But actually, it's a hardship on those 300 volunteers that basically come of their own free time and provide community service in hours and hours of set building, costume making, acting, ushering, all the different things that go into our product. Basically what happens is that we go to Park Ride and request a large number of parking passes that have no value at the time. And then as our volunteers have a need to come and work and volunteer in our building, they pay $1 a parking pass. And your recommendation is to discontinue that, so those volunteers would now be paying $3 every time they come to spend anywhere from 3 to 8 hours a day after they've worked their full-time job coming to help us produce our productions. And that's a hardship. We depend on those volunteers, and basically they're giving all of those hours of in-kind time, plus now they're having to increase their parking costs by 200%. So I am here to ask on behalf of Stagecrafters and all of its volunteers that the increase on the parking passes from $1 to $3 not go forward again to City Council. Again, it's a hardship on our volunteers. Our volunteers are how we actually manage our services and products, and we feel like we want to be able to advocate for those volunteers to make sure that they feel like their time is well spent. As you know, we do 10 productions a year and bring over 30,000 individuals into the downtown area, dinner before the production and drinks afterwards. So we're creating economic development with our product as well. And I just wanted to come before you and let you know how our volunteers feel. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Suzanne.
One question. Suzanne, are all the volunteers, is it all at night, like all after 5 o'clock?
It's mostly in non-high areas, yes. Usually they're there by anywhere from 3 to 5 o'clock and may stay actually until midnight. And then Saturday mornings, you know, basically they're coming to, like I said, to prepare for the productions. So you know, we have a day build crew that comes in the morning and works until 5, and then evening people that come, the day crew are retired individuals and on a limited income. So it's mostly during the week.
And I'm sorry, do the passes work one time or for one person?
They work one time. Let's say that someone knows that they're going to be coming to volunteer 5 days in a week. So they might purchase from us 5 passes at $1 a piece, but there's no cost until the pass is used. So when they put it in the machine, it registers as $1, and then at the end of the month, Stagecrafters receives an invoice, and we pay it with the money that's been collected from our volunteers. So it's not to do something nice one time for Stagecrafters doesn't help us at all, because our product is ongoing, and this is an ongoing issue for our volunteers who are actually paying for those passes, not Stagecrafters as an organization.
So when they put it in the machine, the parking bills you the $1?
Yes.
Got it.
But we've collected that from the volunteer.
So now it would be $3 if
Yes.
this goes through?
Yes.
Suzanne, do you have contact info? Do you have a card or something?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, give it to me. Okay. Oh, Sean's got it? Okay, that's good. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan Bills, and I live at 624 Detroit Avenue. And I'm one of the persons that helped put together the RAT workshop in our community. So it was a volunteer organization. It was on February 10th, and we had a great turnout. Almost 500 people, or more than 500 people, attended on a very snowy day. So my reason to be here today is I would love to ask if perhaps the DDA and our group could work together, because we know that one of the main issues with the rat problem in our community is the garbage. So there's lots of information that I can help provide the DDA where we can possibly work together to solve the problem. And I don't know if this is my first step or who I need to meet with directly, but I think I have a lot of good information our group does that would be very helpful to the DDA.
Jan? Meet Sean.
Sean, I kind of thought I was going to talk to you.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that's your first and best step.
Okay, perfect. So Sean, should I wait for you to contact me, or do you want me to contact you?
You have contact information, I'll take it.
I sure do.
Reach out to you right after.
Okay, do you want me to give it to you now?
Sure.
Okay, I can give you my phone number. How's that? Thank you. Thank you so much.
Michigan basketball. First time I'm late. They couldn't start without me. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else for public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back here. Number 3, approval of meeting minutes from February 21st, 2018, and our February 24th, 2018 work session.
Before you move on, I'd like to have the PR company that the city hired to do the PR and public relations for the ROK project just come up and introduce yourselves and kind of give an overview, I guess.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Robbins Sabrin, and this is Lauren Connor. We're from Franco. We're really excited to be working on this project. I think a few of you, I know Sean and Donald are familiar with the project they're going to be doing, but we're going to be working on the Civic Center Community Development Project, and mostly the communication of all of the things that are going to happen leading up to the project. Related to parking. This will be a hot topic, I'm sure, and we're going to be helping to get the word out and help with the communications. So this group is going to be especially important to us because you are the connection to a lot of the retailers and business owners that we're going to want to communicate with. So we hope to be working with you.
Good. Again, here's your good point of contact right here, Sean, if you haven't already made contact. I'm sure you have. Good, okay, all right.
Yeah, a couple questions. I just saw recently that this was happening. And are you guys more an information arm in terms of, chronology of work, things like that, parking, or is it more than that? Is there,
Well, it's going to be a little bit of both. So some of it's going to be pulling all the information together about what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and then some of it's going to be talking about what the end product is and getting people excited about that. So, and then giving people alternate options. So where can you park? What parking is available? So it's going to be a little bit informational and educational.
And the marketing arms that you're gonna use, social media, what all are you going to?
Well, luckily, the city of ROK has a ton of properties, traditional and non-traditional media, social media. So what we would like to do is use all of the communication channels, but really trying to get a consistent message out over all of the properties, which there are quite a few of. So our hope is to have a dedicated website, landing page, and newsletter that we're going to work through, and that'll be the focal point, and then we're hopefully going to be developing a lot of other materials as well.
And will it be a two-way communication?
Absolutely. So the first part of the project, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to come today, is we want to get information and survey the business owners about their parking needs, what's happening right now in their business, so we can get a better understanding of how this is going to affect them and how we can communicate with them and help them to communicate with their customers.
And it'll be two-way as well with the residents?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So, and I mean, obviously you guys are going to be getting some good back and you're going to be getting some negative back.
Oh, yeah, we fully expect that. So some of the ideas that we had in our proposal, we just started yesterday, were to host in-person meetings, collecting information, making sure that we're involved in all the channels. The good news is that Lauren and I and Megan, who couldn't be here with us today, we are all Royal Oak residents. So we're on the ground. We're going to be hearing all of the feedback from our neighbors and everybody here too as well. So hopefully that will help us, be able to communicate quickly and turn around information when we hear rumors of floating around or need to address something.
And will you also be working with the media as well?
Absolutely. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yep, and I mean, that one of the most important things too is to make sure that we're maintaining the business that you currently have, so that people aren't turning away from the downtown businesses because of the construction. So that'll be very important.
And sorry, just one more question. Will you also be, like, as the project, gets nearer and chronology comes out and we kind of see what some of the problems are going to be, like with regard to parking, traffic, whatever, will you be making recommendations to the city, to us, and to the commission on ways to sort of not heal the wound, but soften the blow? Like, for example, like Birmingham this summer. Old Woodward is going to be shut down for all through downtown for like 4 blocks. And I think they're doing something like, I think they're going to have a valet parking in a certain area. Mm-hmm. They're trying to do things to ease it for the merchants and the customers and residents as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of our plan. I mean, what we really want to do is give business owners a tool, and a way to communicate to their customers, but also like telling them what to communicate. One business on this side of town may have a different parking arrangement than a business on this side of town, and making sure that everybody knows what makes sense for where they're located. So, over here, I may want people to go to this parking garage, or let them know that it has, 2 hours of free parking, or this side of the town may have a different, parking regulation. So we want to just make sure that everybody knows what they're telling their customers, and that it's really clear, and that there's a lot of frequency so everybody knows this is happening. And to make it fun too, like, part of it is getting people excited about what the end result's going to be too. So they're interested, they're invested in the city, and they want to keep coming back. So, but yeah, like I said, we just started yesterday, so all of these things hopefully will be developing soon.
It's going well so far. Okay. All right, anybody else? Well, thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you. I'm sure we'll be talking.
Absolutely, yeah, we look forward to working with you.
Okay, very good. Okay, on to number 3, the approval of the meeting minutes from February 21st, 2018, and our special meeting from February 24th, 2018, our work session. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Director Safaya. Support. Supported by Director Johnson. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Item 4A, monthly expenses. Informational only this month. Any questions for Mr. Twing?
I have a question.
Sure.
What is the $8,000 for? Oh, it was for last year. Okay, never mind. Got it.
Any other questions? All right. Seeing none, let's move on to number 5, the chamber request for the clay, glass, and metal. And I know
Shelley's here.
Shelley's here. If you'd like to come on up.
Shelley Kemp, Executive Director for the Royal Oak Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, I didn't know if you had anything else you wanted to say.
No, I usually when I, actually I'm not usually because I usually don't come in front of you guys. No, I just figured I'd answer questions. I'd be happy to explain again what I'm looking for.
Maybe
whatever you want.
tell us what might be different this year about clay and glass.
Sorry, I always feel too tall up here. Okay. Clay, glass, and metal, this will be its 24th year. And in the beginning, when OCC ceramics teacher and a couple other people decided to start the Clay Invitational, it was probably one of the only art shows in the area, or at least in like the immediate area. Yes, Ann Arbor's been around a while, but so we always had pretty good attendance, lots of artists, and of course, as the years have progressed, not only has the competition got a little stiff, especially Berkeley, seeing as how they have a show exactly on the same Saturday as Clay and Glass now. We've recognized that not only the show is still great, it is still clay, glass, and metal. It is those 3 mediums. We have every intention of always keeping it that way, but we're noticing that not only are the artists, the applications that we get kind of coming in a little bit lower, but the attendance is lower. So we've decided that obviously we need to kind of stick a bit of a jolt into this event. And through talking with all kinds of different people, including the coordinator that has worked with us for 12 years, we sort of kind of keep going back to the fact that all of these mediums are manipulated by heat and flame, fire, that kind of thing. And when I've talked about it to people that are unfamiliar with this event, their eyes kind of light up and they're like, oh yeah, everything's flames. So we have decided that, among other things, and I'll explain a little bit further into detail of the other things, but we are adding a little bit more of an element that will be, I guess, more social media worthy, something that people actually want to take pictures of, talk about, tweet, Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of good stuff. And we're adding many different elements, including lots of flame type of things, which includes flame eaters / flame throwers. There is a actual camp that trains people to do this for, I don't know, a living, but there is a camp that people can go to pay, and that camp is going to be coming to the show to, obviously, one, recruit people to come to their overnight camp to learn how to eat fire, but they're also going to be demonstrating all these kind of things. So we've got a little bit more excitement going on. It's laid out technically the same. We're not changing it. It is going back on Washington, which I think most of you know by now. But aside from adding a little bit more, excitement, we're also adding probably at least 3, if not 4, large demo areas going down Washington. The first one will be the clay demo area that will be at the OCC campus. I've been in talks with OCC, and they're very excited. They've offered several things to help us. I didn't know they had a fire engine, and they're bringing that. But anyway, hopefully. So there'll be a large demo area of clay over by OCC, and we're going to have an emerging artist section there as well this year, which we've never done. And all of those artists will hopefully be from OCC. OCC has 6 different campuses, for lack of a better term, and they have lots of ceramic artists and also a lot of metal workers that are artists. So we are going to have them be part of the show and that end of things with the clay. The demo areas will be a little bit, we always have had demonstrations at the show, but they've been a little bit smaller. We're adding some acoustic music to those demo areas as well, and there will also be people that will actually be talking to the group with some seats so people can actually just sit and watch pots being thrown or metalwork being done, and people with microphones talking and explaining to the people how these things are done. We've had the person doing the work explaining, but that's a little difficult when they're actually, hammering out a horseshoe or whatever. So we'll have a little bit more interaction in each one of these demo areas. So clay, there'll be a glass demo area, there'll be a metal demo area, and if we can swing it, there'll be a jewelry demo area because that's a big part of our show as well. And so those will go all the way down. Each demo area will have a different kind of music, either acoustic, blues. It just kind of depends on what the vibe is for each one of those mediums. And there will be also take-home projects for kids or adults, if they want to do that. Either no cost or very low cost, small little stained glass, small clay pots. So we're working on some of that. But so it'll just be a little bit more exciting with a little bit more noise going on, a little bit more picture opportunities. So that's basically it, what we're changing up. And we're also, I was hoping I would be able to give it to you today, but I'm not quite ready. We're changing the logo. It will be a very different logo this year. And it will not be necessarily called Clay Glass and Metal anymore. We're changing it, and there will be a moniker. It'll say Clay Glass Metal at the bottom, but the show will have a new name. So that will go along with the fire theme.
And your ask today is
The ask today.
$5,000.
Yeah,
Okay.
the ask today is for $5,000 to help us with more with all the marketing that we have to go to do to try to, obviously, as I've said to you guys, I don't like to throw a party that no one comes to, and we need a little bit of help with some additional funds to help us with an actual PR person that does art shows. The artist coordinator has talked to the firm that does some of the art at the Ann Arbor Art Fair. If you guys know anything about Ann Arbor, there's lots of different art shows within Ann Arbor on that weekend or that week. We have talked to the person that does a lot of the guild shows and does all the PR for them, including, TV, radio, social media buys, all that kind of good stuff. So that's what we're working on. And then also, as I've said to you guys, I want the more people that come to our show, the better for the city once all is said and done. Once, it doesn't matter it does matter, but if 5 people come to my show or 50,000, we still make the same amount of money. We don't have a gate or a fee. But if so many more people come into downtown, of course, my hope is that they come back or spend money while they're there and are wowed by a store or a restaurant and just come back again. So that's always been my hope. I'm just hoping to get a heck of a lot more people down here this year. So,
Matt?
Shelley, couple questions.
Yeah.
With the addition of the PR firm, which I think is a great idea, will they, or the PR group, are they charged with solely increasing attendance, or will they also be trying to get artists as well?
Well, the artists, that has already happened. We've already done the jurying last Tuesday night, and we have 100 artists, which is what we always have. Well, what we've had for about 6 years. It used to be about 120 artists, but like I said, things have kind of been coming down. So getting artists for 2018 is not something that they're in charge of. But what always seems to happen is if we have a really amazing year, which we've had a couple in the last few years, weather is never our friend either, but can't do anything about that. When we have a really good year, the artist applications go obviously up the next year because all those artist people talk to each other and say, oh my God, did you go to Royal Oak this year? It was amazing. So it'll if it works, that'll be next year, and we'll have some more interest from different artists. We have about 4. I think it is going to end up about 52% new artists this year. Some of them are grandfathered in when they get juried. They stay for 3 years. It's just sort of how a lot of art shows do it. But this year it's about 52% new artists, which we were really trying for too, which I'm a little surprised because we didn't do so great last year, but I was happy to say that. But so no, they won't do the artists this year. It'll be to get people into town.
Okay, and with the, you've got the areas, the demo areas, and are any of those interactive, or is it all artists? In other words, are some of them something where like for example, the clay area, is that something that where they're just gonna have artists doing it, or will there be times like where people can try something like that, or?
Oh, no, it's interactive as well. People, there will be, like I said, things for younger kids to do, little trinkets to make or whatever. But all of them will be, it's our plan that all of them are interactive in some way, shape, or form. It may not necessarily be taking something home, because some of the stuff is, you can't take it home that day. Like, we were thinking about doing some sort of raku, which is, it's like lots of flame, and you can't really take that home that day. But just for someone to participate in it and to show them how it's done and let them do it, or even throw a pot. Many people haven't even sat at a wheel and done that and put their hands in the clay. So yes, it will be interactive for sure.
And see, now, I think this stuff I think it's great. And whoever the PR person is, I mean, this is something that, like, really, they got to blast out there and get on, every week of or week before. They should be on, every morning TV show and things like that.
Yes.
And you're right, I mean, fire sells. It does.
It does.
It does.
does.
Young and old, people love fire.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah, OCC, I didn't know this, they train, I think, I don't want to say the wrong thing, 90% of the first responders in Oakland County, and they have their own fire truck. And obviously it's for class or for training, so it doesn't have to be used. So we had a conversation, and we might be able to, like, it might be one of our blocks, as opposed to using, the street barricades. We might have to have a fire truck there instead.
in case, right?
Just in case. Well, it could be, we'll put the
kids love
fire
fire
eaters
trucks.
down by them as well.
Anybody else? Gary?
Shelley came to our committee last month and had an uphill climb, I have to say. When she came in, there wasn't a lot of support for her request. However, she demonstrated a good reason for the money, and was very honest about the history of the event and where it's at right now. And where it's at right now, it needs some help. And what she presented very eloquently was she's got one more chance to make it great again. So I'm going to support this request because I want to go with a clear conscience that we did everything to help them make it good. I asked her flat out, is this going to be a one-time request? And she agreed that it would be. So for this investment, if we could make Clan Glass what it was when I first came to town, I think it's money well spent. That being said, I don't want to send a message to the community that, membership organizations can come to the DDA and have us fund their events. That's not what we're trying to do, but we felt that Shelley demonstrated the hardship, and I'm going to support this.
Anybody else with that? Shelley? Mike?
I too will support it for a lot of the same reasons that Gary just stated. If we were to go back and look at our goals and objectives, which is down the agenda a little bit here, I do believe it falls within the goals and objectives that we have set forward for coming forward, particularly in regarding some of the discussion that we had at our last study session and the DDA and moving towards more of a marketing plan than we've had in past previous years. And I think this money being used to market the event subsequently markets Royal Oak, and I think it falls well within our means to do this. So I'll be supporting this.
Director Krieger first.
So I'm going to agree with Director Baglio and Sophia. I'm going to back this. I think that we've given more money to events that maybe didn't have as much impact, and I think that Clay and Glass is something that does bring a lot of people here. So I'm hoping to make it better and hoping to draw more people. I think it could be great for the downtown. So
I would support this all day long for a number of reasons. One, it's been, for as long as I've been in Royal Oak, this event has been here. It started to struggle for various reasons, the time of the year, other art shows. And the way that they're going about it, I think is from a business model, makes all the sense in the world. In other words, they're increasing the breadth of the show, making it more interactive, which, as we all know today, is what people want. And the money that they're asking us for, the way I see it, is primarily for the marketing and promotions, which not only promotes the show, but it promotes the entire downtown area. And if this is successful this year, then what happens is those artists who've gone away come back next year. So it does, the promotion money does, we're getting a bang for the buck if it's done properly. We're getting people to come into the city, see the event, stay for the event, patronize the businesses while they're here, hopefully come back. And if it goes well, then when the artists pack up their U-Haul and they move on to Iowa and they see the guys who used to be here, they're like, hey, check out Royal Oak next year. Here's what happened.
Exactly.
Okay, we got a lot of people. Oh, Tony, do you have something?
I'm a big advocate of events downtown. I think the downtown, our downtown is it just lends itself to these kinds of things. So I'd love to see it be better than it's been. It has struggled. I think I've seen that too. So this reinvigorating the thing is a fantastic idea. I thought I read somewhere in the materials, maybe it was the acoustic, but I thought you considered maybe doing a stage with some music or?
It's not out of the realm of possibility, but with our space that we have, it might be a little difficult to fit a full-size stage into anywhere. We just talked about this a couple days ago. It's not a no, and I have a possibility of having someone help us with some of the music. We just have to find space for it, and that's because of the very large demo areas that we're doing. We're kind of losing some of the space because obviously we're doing this for the artists too, you know. So we just have to be careful, but it's not out of the question. We do have a stage.
Do you close down Washington Amphith or?
We've we're still working because we haven't done the special event permit yet. We were contemplating making it when we do normally. We've closed from Lincoln all the way to 4th Street, but leaving that opening for the 5th condos because that's the only way they can get in and out of their driveway. So we don't do valet parking or anything for them. We allow them to use their space as they normally would. They just have to be a little bit patient for us to move the barricades during the show. We're contemplating stopping at 5th, so we don't have to block. There won't be any artists between 5th and 4th, and making it so in front of your business and Hopcat is still open, so the vehicles can still go that way. If we do a stage, we might have to change that thought process, but we still are kind of playing around with stuff, and obviously we'll ask the chief of police and what people think and what you guys think.
But with Washington closed 5th, 6th, it's not easily accessible. So one of those streets, if you closed it just to put a stage, I think if you're going to reinvigorate it, a show oftentimes includes that entertainment, and the acoustic I think is real nice. But if you have a stage, because you have it set up for the weekend, you get bands like Flamingos or Reeferman, and that people will come out and it'll draw people and generate that traffic that you're looking for.
We haven't decided yet, so obviously, and I'm always trying to be conscientious of the people that are on those streets that we don't have to close. Like, obviously, we have to close going into from 6th going to Washington, from 7th going in. We have to, because there's stuff on Washington. We've always struggled with 5th, at least that half of 5th where you are, because if we don't have anything there, we don't have to close it. It's not a necessity. We can squish the artists and put them up on the sidewalks and stuff, but, and I'm always trying to be, I know how busy it is over there, so I'm trying not to mess with valet and all that kind of good stuff too, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll talk. We can talk about it.
Yeah, just because if we're spending the $5,000 to promote and get, you want to give it your best shot. Yep. So
yep.
that's I think that would be a positive aspect.
6th and 7th.
Oh, no, I was just, I didn't think Gary did. I don't know if you had a question or not.
Yeah, I have one quick question.
Sure.
Well, just going back to the stage, there's also, possibilities on the side, like one of the Arts Beats and Eats stages, the R&B stage is in that little side alley on the east side between 6th and 7th. And I'm not sure what that parking lot is, but it's a pretty cool area, and it's out of the way. And it's got 2 buildings. There's a little alley for
The old paint store.
Yes, okay. I know what you're talking
It's a
about. Yep.
perfect spot for a
It's a
stage.
stage, an art speed
It's,
stage, yeah.
it's a great area. I'm not sure who owns it or what the deal is, but.
Dr. Sophia?
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion on this. I am glad to see it back on Washington Avenue, though. I think that that's where it belongs.
Me too.
So I'll move that the request for the DDA for $5,000 to the Chamber of Commerce.
I got a motion from Director Sophia.
Second.
Second by Director Baglio. Any discussion?
We just had it.
Well, yeah, exactly. I wasn't sure how this was gonna go,
Okay.
but you said fire, and all these guys just sort of,
Yeah.
they're like staring like out into space. So if there's no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Everybody, please come to the show, too.
Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Shelley, this new name and new logo are fantastic.
Say it again?
The new name and the new logo are great.
It'll be, yeah. It's getting there. I will unveil it to all of you. Bloom has a new logo too this year, by the way. You can buy that.
Okay, thank you, Shelley. On to number 6, the Rich and Associates Parking Report.
Annika Norris is here from Rich and Associates. The intent today is to just really give you an update. She did provide a preliminary draft report. I'm not sure she was going to hand that out today or not, but the intent today is to give you an update where they're at, what they found. But this is a draft. There are some parts that I'll let her touch on that they're still waiting for additional information on, or were at least as of yesterday. So with that, Annika, I'll let you kind of give an overview of what you found and where you're at.
All right, well, thank you. Stephen Wiltsey is with me today. We're working together on this. Just to kind of give you a quick overview. So we're looking at the high demand area specifically for the study. We updated the parking supply within that area. We conducted 2 turnover and occupancy analysis. The first occurred on Saturday, March 3rd from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. The second we conducted on Thursday, March 8th. Again, same hours from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And then we took a overview of some parking operations and management, specifically looking at the time limits and allocation, the high demand area, what your control equipment is, parking pricing, enforcement, and then basically park mobile, and mobile payments, and then marketing. It was great to hear they have a marketing firm helping you with new projects going forward. Marketing is a huge part of parking management that often goes overlooked. And I know this is in front of you for the first time. We were waiting on some data from the parking decks to be able to fill in our occupancy analysis. We received that information yesterday towards the end of the day, so wanted to get it into all of our graphs and charts, and then also the maps to make sure everything was correct. So I kind of thought this might be a bit more of a workshop session, not quite so formal. So you had a question?
Well, I have a question for the chairman here. I'm wondering if it's in the best interest of the DDA to send this back to committee?
Yeah, I
Or a
mean,
little bit more
I would
in-depth,
say
right?
so. That would probably be, I would suggest that that's what we do. So I think, I'm not sure if you have, I know you're waiting on data, apparently. You've got it now, so you're.
So
now you
this is
gotta-
the draft version, and
So
we
you gotta
just
work
need
it
to
and
work
get
it out.
So when do you think you might have that ready?
It just needs to get in front of people to get comments and feedback, make sure we hit the marks, we haven't left anything out. A little bit of conversation back and forth, and
So what you came here today thinking we were gonna have is what we need to do.
Well, let me back up a minute. The resolution the DDA passed when you hired Rich and Associates was for them to report to you today on this report, so they're here based on
Right.
that resolution that the board passed. If you want to refer it back to committee to digest the report and do that, that's fine, but they're here today because that's what you wanted them to do.
I think I would rather have it go back to the committee, because I've seen, this has been in front of me for like 4 minutes.
Oh, no, there's no intent to ask you to act.
You haven't digested it yet, Jacob?
I mean, I take advantage of the fact that you're standing here, obviously, to answer some questions, but I think it needs to go back to the committee level and then back up here again.
Right, yeah, I mean, and this is the preliminary, so.
Right.
Annika, can I ask you, are there any highlights or anything that you want, maybe want to point out as we're going through this for us to look at? Say, hey, guys, these are some areas of concern.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and as we're trying to compare it to previous data, it gets very difficult because the parking levels have changed, right? We have a new deck now. Like the 2000 study, Imagine, wasn't there. The theater itself, the lot, it wasn't used the same way as well as the deck that's there. One of the things I did notice is going over that is once the that deck went in by Imagine, and it's also hard, we're kind of off season, so I keep looking at other reports in the past to see what different times were. But the farmer's market lot was used much more, especially the small lot in the front.
Now?
Used to be used a lot more in the evenings than it was when we were here. That doesn't mean it's not going to change in the summertime.
Right.
So I guess a couple key points are, when we looked at the actual turnover for the on-street spaces on Saturday, 83% of the vehicles that we saw were not in violation. So that's pretty good. We like to see less than a 7% violation, but overall, like when you're looking at the numbers, so just real quick, 274 of the 1,983 stayed beyond 2 hours, between 2 and 4 hours.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 4. I think turnovers are pretty key when we're looking at enforcement and we're looking at what the hours, if we're changing those hours and such. I don't want to spend a lot of time, but these two tables are kind of important. So you'll see that 274, that's about 14% of all the vehicles observed. And then 48 vehicles stayed between 4 and 6. Dropped down to 7 between 6 and 8. Only 2 stayed all 8 to 10, which is pretty much all day, and then another 3 stayed all day from 10 to 12. So most likely between 6 vehicles that stayed between 6 and 10 hours are most likely employees of the downtown, some business, right? It's not a huge number, but still need to try to keep encouraging that. But on a Saturday, people tend to take advantage and do that.
Right.
Thursday, the number of people that stayed between 2 and 4 hours dropped down to 79%. So 90% of all vehicles we saw that day were not in violation. So overall, Thursday, people are tending to do more what they're supposed to be doing.
These were done after 5 o'clock, is that what you said? The time frame on these were
The time frame for this was from 11 a.m.
11 a.m., okay.
until 11 p.m. The last count starting at 9. But, and then there's maps that show where those violations typically occurred. And the interesting thing that we noted as we were doing this is there's more violations occurring on the west side than there are on the east, if you use Main Street as that divider. It was interesting.
Is there any correlation?
In Lafayette.
There's nothing here that shows where we have
Those are probably
IPS meters, where we have just the plain coin meters either, is there? Would that have something to do with that possibly?
Possibly, more likely, it's Lafayette's a little bit further away and people tend to think maybe enforcement won't hit them as often there. But It could be that they didn't want to go back because they didn't have the option to pay for more hours.
Were those vehicles, they're all, so you're saying by violators, tickets or beyond the 2-hour time limit?
2-hour time limit.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of employees park on the fringes too.
Right.
I live on, at 6 and Knowles, and I constantly have every employee in town parking in front of my house. So,
Right.
which I get, yeah, I get it. So.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard. I mean, some people feel that it's worth that. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the violation rate, somewhere around $10, I think.
Yeah, $10 probably.
Yeah, so to them, it's worth it for a Saturday where maybe they especially where they feel they didn't want to walk as far. Right, so the percentages are shown throughout here with some overall summaries. As expected, Saturday has a higher overall, higher peak than Thursday. Well, that's to be expected. Other than that, I mean, it was really busy both days, and we expected that to happen. I think the 11 o'clock on Thursday was at 30%. 9 to 11, it dropped down to 30. On Saturday at 9 to 11 was closer to it's just over 73%. So just from driving around and seeing things, there's some things that we could see to help encourage people to park in the decks. The fact that they won't get a ticket. You know, if they go, it's easier. They don't have to worry about coming back to their meter. If we, like marketing, like I said, is one of those huge components to help. And then we also talk about, expanding the park mobile and potentially expanding the IPS meters as further out and things like that.
Okay.
But there wasn't anything like super surprising that we saw.
Those were in your recommendations, some of those things?
Yeah, we get kind of. There's 7 different recommendations there, kind of hitting on those first things that I talked about: enforcement, park mobile, marketing, hours and allocation and such. Okay. And there's an overall benchmarking chart that's really easy for you guys to do a little bit of, did the research for you.
I like easy charts.
Yeah. So we've got Ann Arbor, Birmingham, Detroit, Ferndale, Grand Rapids, Mount Clemens, and Traverse City. So pretty good variety.
Matthew?
Yeah, Annika, this is the preliminary report. Is the final report going to contain like more recommendations with regard to pricing and stuff like that, or?
It's after spell check, then it's the final report.
What's that?
It's after spell check, then that's the final report.
Yeah, we'll definitely add pricing in and things like that. Some of these will have, some pretty hefty prices if you go to put IPS throughout the whole high demand area, or but some don't, like Park Mobile. Adding that in, most of your price is going to be in the stickers and marketing.
Okay, and as for I'm just sort of confused. You actually, like, in this report, you've got a couple days of data.
Mm-hmm.
Did the city give you like annual data on lots and stuff like that? Because I think that was in the proposal that they were going to give you that. Was that also analyzed, or just the couple days that you were here?
Well, the report, what we can get out of the lots is a little bit difficult to put down into actual occupancy to compare it. What we can look at is revenue.
Sure.
To see where those peaks are and such, which help us kind of with overall planning. But it doesn't have like that. We don't have quite the hour-to-hour occupancy that we thought we might be able to get.
Well, I guess one thing that might be interesting is to compare, just for simply like on a correlation basis with regard to what you saw versus what the annual was, if there's some that are aberrations. In other words, not to cast any dispersions on the report, but when you're looking at a 2-day usage, there's a lot of things that can go into that, weather, time of year.
Right.
Who knows?
Right.
That could throw it off. But I wouldn't want to hang my hat on 2 days of data as if that was it. If there's some way that we can correlate it to what a yearly usage is, and if it fits, okay, then that, if there's an aberration, then we look at it a little closer.
Right, and you have to remember too, this isn't a demand study, so we're not using the turnover and occupancy analysis, it's more of an observation to see how the system's working, how things are working. We do understand that there's different times of the year when the peak is going to be much higher, and we can go back and now that we have all the full data, we can compare it to previous years. We just have to remember that those previous years have different numbers of parking spaces.
Sure.
Because now we've got an additional 534 or something like that in the new deck. I mean, just as those lots come on, we'll do our best to compare them as closely as we can, but it's not complete apples to apples. So yes. And this report is more to kind of go over management and best practices and look at how people are using what you have. And we'll definitely be able to compare the turnover analysis to previous reports as well to see. But you're not completely out of whack, you know, you're not too far outside of the boundaries and where you should for the turnover. Some of it's expected because you're just going to get people that are not willing to pay, or they don't care if they go over.
And the point about sort of promoting the decks, I mean, that's something that we absolutely have to do. If you look at what the short-term future, you know, out here, you're going to, this surface lots will become a deck, and eventually there's, you know, the good possibility that 600 South Main becomes a deck. So at that point, you've got 1, 2, if you count this as one surface lot, 4 surface lots that will have become deck areas.
Right, and it's key to get them in there because it talks about in here, there's a hierarchy for a general person that comes into your downtown. They want to park on street first. Their second option is to park in a lot, and their third and final option is to park in a deck. Sure. Well, unfortunately, some cities are very dense, and so decks are the opportunity. You offer 2 hours free, so really need to market that to get them off the street and into those decks. So.
No, very good point.
Anybody else?
Okay, thank you.
I'll let you know when the committee's meeting.
Okay, and if you want to gather comments behind, and I can make changes before we come to the meeting as well. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. On to number 7, parking garage retail space.
Well, Sean's put together an overview. The DDA has been talking about the retail space that's in the new parking deck and your involvement, how you would like to see it used. Obviously, it's a city-owned facility. The initial thought was that the DDA a few months ago would send a general overview to the City Commission asking them for support on that. And after some additional discussion, it was thought a better approach would for the DDA to actually get very specific or more specific on what it saw for the space and sending an offer up to the City Commission for their consideration. Sean spent some time going through that and putting together a fairly good report on it. I think a couple items that you may want to discuss in terms of the board is, are you going to take a more active role in the sense of not necessarily ownership of the space, but renting the space from the city, where then you would control it. So you would take over management, rent, and maybe pay the city a dollar amount. Would there be a term to that? Those sorts of discussions, and Sean gave some general numbers for the downtown, but really we're looking for direction from the board today as to whether that's something you wanted to entertain, and if so, at what kind of level, so that we could finalize this report, amend it. Are you interested in, if you did that in a term of 5 years, 4 years, how would you want it addressed in terms of the space right now is considered cold, dark space? Are you going to also build it out and what does that mean in terms of that? So there's some holes in this, but before I think we can finalize it, we were looking for some direction from the board on particular, I think, those items as far as, I'll stop there, I guess, but I don't know, Sean, if you want to walk through it maybe?
Sure, yeah.
Is that all right, or?
Yeah, no, please, it'd be great if we
I think
could do
there's
that.
also one more thing to consider, which is this plan that was written talks about utilizing 100% of the 5,000 square feet, or the 5,700 square feet. You know, we have to decide whether or not we want to use the entirety of that space, or if portions of that space are going to be dedicated to other purposes as well. So we have to, I think, probably coordinate with the city commission and the city administration to some extent. But basically, I kind of came into this looking at a few policy problems going on in the downtown. That includes things like market failures. And I thought, well, if this space is going to do what we talked about in many of the committee meetings, how can we address a lot of those policy issues that keep occurring in the downtown? So one of the things that we all have talked about and are well aware of are the rising price per square foot for rents, particularly for retail. It's becoming an increasing burden. So first thing that this space would do would be to share space among many tenants, and I go through a number of ways that we can divide that space into tiers. You can have something as simple as a kiosk, which would be very inexpensive, upgrading to something more like a booth, and then maybe something that'd be more like a small boutique within that space. So those could be tiered at different price points as well, depending on how capitalized the entrepreneur going into that space is. So because they're sharing that 5,700 square feet, you know, that drops the rent for them. But it also doesn't distort the real estate market down here to a point of absurdity. So it's still within the realism of what we could probably get per square foot based on the location of the space and then based on its current position, its current condition as well. So and I have corroborated a lot of the price per square foot range with some real estate brokers in the area as well, and tried to get their honest feedback as if they were marketing the space, what would they have it at? And the feedback that they gave to me was it would be anywhere between $15 to $18 per square foot if it was finished white box space. So right now that space is not. So if the DDA were to go into that, who's doing the build out costs, we'd have to work that out, and then what would the price per square foot be that the DDA would offer on that space.
What brokers were you talking to?
I was talking to a broker from Girdham,
Okay.
so he was my primary point of contact. And let's see. So essentially, those are just some of the questions that we want to do, that we need answered in order to move forward to take it to the commission with a formal ask. If we're going to do, you know, are we using 100% of the space? How long of the lease period do we want to have? What's going to be the arrangement in terms of the build out? Is the DDA going to be paying rent during the build out phase, or are they going to be dedicating money towards that, or is there going to be a building allowance for that as well?
Landlords always give you that time of no rent.
Right.
Right then. To build it out.
So
They actually give you TI money. Is that
That's
how it
right,
works?
they do.
Director Spada.
So I'm sure Mr. Twing doesn't want to hear this, but this this to me seems like a lot of work. There seems like to be multiple issues here, and multiple different directions that this could go in. And to be very honest with you, I don't see that getting done at this table. And I said it earlier, but I'll say it again. I think this maybe should go back to the Business Marketing Committee, who doesn't have a lot on their plate right now, to look at this and come back with a recommendation. That's my thought. Because I think this is, I mean, I like the direction that we're going in here, but, you know, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made.
Step one is what are we gonna do with it?
It's
Yeah.
vague.
That's
Yeah,
step one,
exactly.
right?
And it's hard to sit here and say, well, here's what we're gonna do when we don't know exactly what we're going to use it for.
Yeah, so, and then my next question, Mr. Johnson, none of this ever made it to the commission table, right?
No,
We're-
sir.
We held it back until we came up with a more solid proposal.
And I would like to keep holding it back until we actually have a very specific proposal for the city commission.
Okay. Is it your belief that there's, a flavor for letting the DDA take the lead on this, or?
I think there will be. I think the commission will look favorably on this concept, but I can't guarantee that.
Right.
I mean, it's
For sure.
7
I wasn't
individual
asking
people
you
each
to.
with their own ideas.
I know better than
I've
that.
talked to some of them about it, but I think the commission very much feels that they want to have the same overall goal as the DDA for
Okay.
the space. But the commission is limited by some other factors that the DDA is not limited by. I mean, this is space in a parking structure that was built with revenue bonds. The commission can't do things that the DDA can do. You know, if the DDA rents the space from the commission at market value, the DDA can turn around and do whatever it wants with the space, including putting vendors in there on a short-term subsidized. The city can't subsidize anybody. I mean, we had public comment today from somebody that wants a subsidy. The city can't do that.
Gotcha.
But the DDA can.
I would say that there's important opportunities here in terms of business development, where we could start growing some entrepreneurs into some spaces in downtown. And I think that is probably a really good economic development tool that we could have in a toolbox should we move forward with this.
I agree, and I just want to comment, I think Sean did a great job on putting this together. And my thoughts on this is specifically what he's got in mind, is that we go after the type of retailer that's got the potential to grow into a regular business. I don't want to go out and be competing for artists and be competing with Made in the Mitten. Because that's really different than what because I don't see most of her vendors as being something that can grow into a store by themselves.
Director Johnson, what you just said, with regard, interesting, because of the bonds, et cetera, and the city not being able to do some things that the DDA wants to do, are you saying that the city cannot subsidize anybody rent-wise with regard to that, including the DDA?
That's my opinion.
So it's your opinion that the DDA would have to pay market value for the space?
Yeah.
Well, that's based on the fact that it's
But
bonded out, correct?
determining what market value is, I mean,
Right.
Sean gave you some numbers that were identified for white box space. This is not white box space,
Right.
it's less than that.
Right.
This is totally unfinished space.
Okay.
There isn't even a floor in it, it's dirt.
And does it, with regard to that deck, does it affect the DDA at all? Because are we on half of the bonds on that one?
Yeah, you're paying half of them.
Is that an issue at all in your mind with regard to us subsidizing somebody else?
You're on a contract with the city for as far as the bonds are concerned.
Okay.
But the actual requirement of the debt obligations is that we're not giving away space.
Okay.
So as long as the parking system is getting a reasonable revenue for the space, I think we're fine. And then it becomes the DDA's problem, you know, whether they have a tenant or not, and how much that tenant is paying.
Sure.
That's why remember back in December, we did the free parking that one Saturday?
Yep.
Well, it was free, but we paid for it.
We-
We actually
Got it.
paid for it because you have to pay for it.
Okay, got it, 'cause all right. Yeah, I agree that, and with regard to the commission, I would think that they'll be way more apt to go along with this if we come to them with something more of a cohesive idea as opposed to, well, we might do this, we might do that, et cetera. I think we really need to sit down one last time soon, ASAP, and top to bottom, come up with, here's what we're gonna do.
I'd like to see both a cohesive idea, and I think this is getting pretty close, and a specific offer.
Absolutely.
You know, how much you're offering in rent.
Absolutely.
How long a term you're willing to agree to.
Did you, I just want to clarify what you might have said earlier. So any revenue stream that were to come in goes to the parking fund? Is that correct?
Any revenue stream that, like, what the DDA pays to the city for the space would go to the parking fund.
Would go to the parking
What the
fund.
tenants pay to the DDA would go to the DDA.
Okay. Just want to be clear.
Basically, it's a situation that the DDA would be leasing the space and we would be subletting it.
Subletting it.
Sure, subletting.
Okay.
I would suggest when we have this meeting, Sean, we make sure that Shelley from the chamber is there and Shelley from the market as well, because they both have a bit of a role in this.
Business Marketing Committee, me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Works for me. We need to do it soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick question for you. So I know that we have some different ideas here, and obviously I think, we'll have to dial that in, as we're hearing here. You mentioned a commercial kitchen, or maybe not. So these are just things that we could do, right? Depending on
These are things
who
that
goes
came,
in.
right, yeah,
Okay.
these are definitely options. These are things that I did incorporate in there because they were things that came out of my meetings with the market master from the farmer's market. And in my conversation with, the Chamber of Commerce and other business development organizations, things that we could do. So I decided to throw it all in there and then kind of take the temperature and then remove things as if they were deemed, non-essential, so.
Right. I mean, obviously, I think that's a great idea. Those commercial kitchens could be bigger space-wise, and may or may not be used for everything. That's where I think we need to, obviously figure out exactly how we're gonna do this, I don't know if there's a way to take the temperature of some other businesses, and you can say, hey, I have 10 people that might wanna come in here and do this, because then we have an idea of how to build it out, and an idea of the cost and everything else. I would personally like this, it seems to me like we would take it as is, and then build it out accordingly, as TI, and I think that would be on our dime to build it out, is what I would think, if we're gonna take it from the city as is.
And that's kind of why we have Shelley from the chamber and Shelley from the market involved,
Yeah.
because they've got a good sense of what the needs are and what the wants are downtown, so.
Yeah, so that's, I guess we'll just see where it goes from there.
Right, we'll work on scheduling that.
So do we need a motion to refer it to business marketing?
Yeah, it'll go there.
So moved.
I'll second.
Well, I don't need a motion, we'll just
Okay.
take it there.
Okay. All right, very good. Nothing else on that. Number 8, the draft RFPs, A, events, marketing, and management.
Well, briefly, again, Sean put the RFP together for both of these based on discussions with the Consumer Marketing Committee. The Consumer Marketing Committee's been looking at the idea of obviously hiring a event coordinator for Spooktacular as well as the holiday event. So the intent of the original RFP was that. And the second one was towards hiring a PR advertising firm. The purpose of this in front of you today is to make sure that the whole board is comfortable really with the scope of work portion. A lot of what you see in here are the legalese that when this goes out for bid will include. And so it's not necessarily looking for input on those portions, but really the scope of work part. And I think if Sean wants to walk through those scopes of work, that'd be the good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah, so most of the RFP here, as Tim indicated, is kind of boilerplate. And I'm going to be working with the purchasing to refine that language if need be. And we've been working really closely together to make sure this is a pretty smooth process here. But I'll direct your attention to the scope of work, if I can get to it here, which is on page 9 for the events section. And basically, we did one RFP for both events, allowing someone to bid, or allowing a firm to bid on both or one or the other. I've included kind of an overall strategy for, you know, plans to encourage patrons to shop and dine at downtown businesses. So we want to have some sort of economic development focus to some of these events as well, to make sure that our brick and mortars are getting more foot traffic as well. So, you know, they're obviously served by this event. You know, developing cross-promotion strategies, coming up with ticket sales plan for rides, activities, or games, strategic talent selection. So having a lot of these things up front when they're bidding on this, you know, I think will prevent a lot of, you know, what we've seen in the past in terms of getting bands the day before the event, so on and so forth. So I think having all of this stuff up front on the vendor being very transparent about how they're going to go about doing all of these things, I think will definitely keep us more organized, and I think could prevent a lot of future mishaps. So I go on talking about a guest safety plan, including provisions for crowd control, emergency services. That's pretty standard. A user-friendly parking plan. So I think that would be very helpful in terms of helping to move parking, focusing on certain areas, especially when there's going to be construction going on downtown. I think helping to ease a lot of that burden is going to be essential. Developing a budget for the event and submitting it prior. And then I go into each individual event. So if they're submitting for the Halloween Spooktacular, please include these bullet points. So basically plan of distribution of candy for trick-or-treating families. How are you going to deal with sidewalk congestion? How are you going to encourage a lot of the foot traffic to circulate through the downtown rather than just have it concentrated on Main Street? I know I observed last year's Spooktacular. It was very congested on Main Street on the sidewalks. However, the streets, the middle of the street looked very empty. And then when you go onto the side streets, and then likewise on Washington, you didn't see that same amount of foot traffic. And there was really nothing that was guiding people over into those areas as well. So, you know, asking a firm submitting for this to come up with some sort of plan to show us how they would creatively have a more even distribution of foot traffic in these areas, I think would be ideal. So I kind of learned from my experience of observing the last events, you know, what to put in here in terms of language of what we would like to see them, you know, address. And then likewise at the very bottom part, if they're submitting for the holiday event, include plan to establish the event in terms of marketing. You know, we want to have this be a very well attended, you know, premier holiday event that draws people from the region. A branding and marketing plan. You know, what's the footprint of this event going to look like? You know, please, you know, addressing again traffic, vehicular and pedestrian. You know, are you going to be using outdoor entertainment activities? And then likewise, how are you going to help this event support our brick and mortar dining and shopping options as well? So that's for the events. Any questions on the events before I just kind of briefly run through the advertising and marketing?
I have a question on this.
Sure.
Probably a stupid question, but how do you get the word out on this? Like, how do you get this to, that's not like, you know, like a job application where, you know, monster.com or whatever.
Just put it on Facebook.
Craigslist.
Yeah.
The city actually has a way that they distribute RFPs. So, and I've been working with Sarah, who's the new purchasing staff person in finance, and she's going to be kind of in charge of getting this out and making it visible. And I'll be working with her as she's kind of going to be like leading this process of like the standard purchasing process of selecting firms for these types of things.
I'm not so concerned about the process.
Okay.
I'm concerned about getting the word to the people. Like, is there an event planner weekly that we can get this? You know, where do you, in other words, how do you get the word to the people who do this kind of thing that they know this is out there on an RFP? Because I'm going to guess that the majority of people who do this kind of thing do so more for private events
Sure.
than for public.
Well, in addition to the way that purchasing is going to handle it and putting it out through the regular channels, I was going to follow that up with a press release and going through all my usual promotional avenues like social media, through print, put it on the website, all of the things that I usually get the word out in. And if the press is usually as responsive as they are to everything else I put out, I'm sure it'll be in the papers and circulated widely.
Probably also a lot of word of mouth. I bet you people in that circle probably know each other.
Well, I don't know, if I was one of them and I heard about it, I wouldn't, and you guys had your event planning companies, I wouldn't be telling you about it, I'd just get mine in there. Did you see that? Question.
Sure, it's fine.
So the first thing that we're working on, or we have here, is strictly for the two events.
Correct.
Okay. And I guess I would maybe refer to Mr. Twing here. Is it typical in RFPs like these to have I'm gonna call it a not to exceed dollar amount? Is that a typical way that this is
First
done?
question we get when we send an RFP out, what's the budget?
What's the budget? Yeah, well,
If you don't include it,
that's
it's
the
just
first question my
gonna
wife asked me too, but she ends up just taking the whole budget anyway, so.
Yeah, I think it gives an indication of where the committee and or the DDA is at in terms of the amount it wants to spend on these events. And so they tailor their proposal based on that. If you don't put a dollar amount in there, they're gonna get calls, are you gonna spend
Right,
5,000 or 200,000?
okay. So to
Makes a
follow,
huge difference, so you gotta put something in there.
Okay.
And the committee did discuss it, did look at past years and what they thought each one should take. And as it's indicated, Sean's included $10,000 for Spooktacular, which is a pretty self-run event. And then the 70,000 for the other holiday event at this point.
and, so I'm gonna assume that we already have these dollar amounts in our current operating budget?
No, that's number 10 on your agenda today.
Okay, it's coming, it's coming. Okay, gotcha.
I'm taking these kind of in order of,
Okay.
if you adjust one, you gotta adjust the other, so.
But it was money that we did spend last year.
No, you didn't spend 10,000 last year on Spooktacular. You probably spent 29, 30,000 on the holiday event at the
Okay.
end of the day.
It sounds to me, and Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, that
Ask for
maybe,
budget increase.
yeah, so but you guys have decided the consumer, I was unable, I was out of town, but you decided that you feel.
$1 million.
Yeah, that discussion was probably short. But, so I'm sure the Consumer Marketing Committee looked at this, because this comes out of their budget, so this is their recommendation.
Is it solely, so this is going out just for a management of an event that we are funding? I mean, I guess my question is, like, for example, the holiday event. What if there's somebody out there who just says, well, you know what, here's my proposal to do the event?
They probably won't get accepted. You know what I mean? I mean, we're looking for brilliant, dazzling ideas to win us over. I look at this as a competition, not just someone to say, okay, I'll take it for 75 grand. What do you want me to do?
No, well, I guess what I'm thinking of is somebody who has a plan, for example, and they're going to, I guess my point is that when we're putting that money in it, that's what we're willing to spend for the event?
The way we kind of settled on the definition of what that line item is a placeholder. Doesn't necessarily have to be that dollar amount, but that's what we're willing to allocate towards it.
Which would include the promoter fee, per se?
Well, that's the next RFP. I mean, obviously, these events will have some marketing aspects to them, but they're gonna have to work in conjunction with the marketing firm that's in the next RFP that we'll talk about in just a minute. Does that make sense? I mean,
Yeah, I just want to go back and read what the, what it said there on the dollar value. So, project expenses. So I guess my question is, if I was gonna bid on this and I had a plan and everything and I was gonna spend like 200 grand on it, but I'm getting revenue back on it. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? So are you is this confusing with regard to that?
You're asking is the 70,000 the cap that can be spent, period?
Well, it
or
says
70,000
project
going to the
expenses
person
should
and
not
then go to the event?
exceed.
That's right, it doesn't incorporate
Yeah, I
sponsorship.
follow.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
In other words, if I'm coming in to do, if I'm, you know, the group we dealt with last year, or the Arts Beats in each group, you know, are you telling me, well, I can't spend more than $70,000? Well,
I think it's all that
I think-
we're gonna spend. I mean, similar to like, Spooktacular last year. We
I
paid,
understand that's what that's what we're meaning, but is that the way it reads? I don't know.
I think that we need to tweak the words. I think you're right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
You could say the DDA will cover project expenses up to.
There you go. If you phrase it like that.
If they think they can spend another 20 grand and the promoter can make another 50 grand of that 20, well, good for him, if it's a good event, right?
Yeah, I think that makes sense, sure.
Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't put it so that it's committed. That we're
Sure,
gonna
yeah,
do
it can
that.
be worded differently where the max
Gives
that
them
they
some
will be.
Sure.
leeway, yeah, I agree.
Sure,
max
I
that
mean,
they will
somebody,
be
somebody.
paid from the DDA would be those amounts, but if they have other sources of revenue and they wanna go above and beyond that, then that's, you know, their
Good
prerogative.
catch, Matt.
When I read it the other day, I was like,
Okay, that makes sense. And as always, we can choose, the Consumer Marketing Committee can choose to recommend the most qualified bid. It doesn't have to be the lowest bid. All right, I guess we should take these one at a time, right?
Yeah, I'd like a motion on these that you concur with them as far as the scope of work and the budget, so, yes, I would like a,
So on A, does anybody want to make on A?
subject to any final wording revisions.
Yeah.
Can are we gonna do it separately? Okay, on, the events marketing and management, I'd like to motion that we accept the RFP, with the clarification that we just discussed regarding,
Covering
additional-
expenses up to.
covering expenses up to and leaving the winner, their, the ability to get sponsorships and additional revenue.
Second by Director Krieger. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. 8B, advertising and marketing.
So, similarly,
And the meat is on page 9 again, I imagine.
so likewise, this RFP is for an advertising and marketing firm. And its intention is to market the entire downtown district. So what we put in the scope of work includes creating strategies that encourage patrons to shop and dine at downtown businesses. So in all of these, I have a very heavy focus on trying to get, foot traffic in the doors of our local businesses. So this is going to be the running theme, and these RFPs, I think, are going to help to serve to do that. Again, cross-promotion strategies that promote the downtown businesses, marketing materials that promote downtown Royal Oak as a regional arts and entertainment destination, outreach strategies, user-friendly promotional materials. And then I also included, and this is of course contingent upon the other project strategies, and content that promote the DDA's retail incubator / venue project that we discussed earlier in the meeting. So we could even use this firm to help get the word out about that project as well. And then developing original content that we can use and implement on a regular basis. So I'm asking that the proposers consider utilizing our existing platform. So rather than going out and creating an independent website to do all of these things, but to use our existing things like our existing website, our existing social media accounts, creating content that we already have in those existing channels. And then again, working with downtown stakeholders when formulating content. So again, project expenses should not exceed $75,000. So I don't know if it would be appropriate to change this one as well, but. Seems like there wouldn't be any sources of revenue like there would be in an event or anything like that, so this, I think, would be.
Well, this is, what you're basically doing is what Mr. Twing said earlier, is that, the first phone call he'll get is, what's the budget? And this is what the Consumer Marketing Committee said is the budget.
Precisely.
Okay. Mr. White.
Just two questions. One, is this, are we considering this like an ongoing thing? Is this a,
That's my question.
you know what I mean? Or is this a one-time thing, or is this a
That's my question.
continual thing?
It doesn't give, is it a 12-month program, or is it a one-time shot? It says, regular reports and meetings in order to maintain an effective avenue of communication and in creating a program for DDA staff to implement.
Well, I didn't exactly know what to include on that. There wasn't a lot of clarification from the Consumer Marketing Committee on that, and I felt that a lot of that could be clarified in the contract. But I think, yeah, you're right. It should include a duration for, even if it's just the first year, and then put that in a contract to have it be renewed at some point. So.
In our defense, we had a huge agenda.
One of the things that the Consumer Marketing Committee talked about when this came up was the role of Sean's position, the downtown manager in it. And I thought where we left it was that the intent of this was for them to come up with the plan, the program, and do certain aspects of it. But at some point, the intent was so that he could take care of the majority of it, not constantly have an outside firm on retainer that's doing work for us.
Yeah,
That's what I got out of the committee discussion.
That makes sense.
And that's what I included here, was to develop original content that I could then implement through our existing social media and website avenues and things, so.
Yeah, that makes sense. My other question, again, and we've probably already discussed this on the previous one, but I get confused when, the first two words underneath the budget there, where it says project expenses should not exceed. And I'm having trouble grasping what is inclusive in project expenses, and does that cover professional fees? Or I guess it says to cover all professional services and purchase goods and services. So I guess what I'm asking is, they're just gonna make some recommendations to us, is kind of where we're at with this? And then, or are they gonna implement strategies?
Well, it looks like in C, it says marketing materials, so I would assume that would mean.
What I envisioned was them coming up, Royal Oak already has a tagline, Life Now Playing. Coming up with original content for Facebook, whether we use print, different strategies that Sean can implement at different times of the year. For example, spring patios are now open, or summer, bring your kid down to whatever that might be, whatever they might develop, throughout a year, an annual program, content, pictures, video, whatever it would be, for Sean to execute over that period. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I'm just, I wasn't sure how.
Right, and the
It doesn't
understanding.
make it really.
Yeah, but I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, the understanding that I came away with it when I was putting this together was to have them generate content for an ad campaign that we could just basically take with it and then run with it.
Gotcha.
Was basically how I understood it, and how the understanding that I was under when I put the scope of work together.
So when you're saying project expenses, then basically you're saying bids should not exceed that, basically?
Correct.
I mean, is that common to do, or I don't know, in RFPs, is it
Well,
common?
as Tim said earlier, if you put out the bids without a dollar amount, the phone calls they'll get is, well, what have they budgeted for this?
Would you feel more comfortable putting that in as a monthly type expense with regard to this? No?
No, I mean, their proposal could allocate it on a month. This is what you're allocating towards this project.
Well, because the
for
majority
year.
expense is gonna be their time,
Yeah,
is their fee.
And they could say, we'll do this in 3 months, 25 grand a month, or they might say we want to do this over a year at 6,000 plus.
Or if we don't get any responses, we know we didn't put enough there.
I think it's a good amount.
So I think we'll get some.
Okay.
It says should not exceed.
Yeah, no, I got you.
And understand the city just sent one out in terms of similar to this for the other project.
Right.
Some people didn't bid because of the budget amount.
For the RLCC?
Yeah.
Okay, and you had something like that in there?
And some of these guys are smart. They'll actually,
I'm just wondering,
they'll look
different
at
way
it.
of doing business.
They'll go online and look at our budget too, and look at the line items, and they do
Sure.
that as well, you know, so.
God bless them if they
Yeah.
Again, they're looking for, if you're comfortable with it, at least a motion. Again, it's just really the scope of work portion and the dollar amount that I'm looking for. If there's any wording changes to the legalese part that finance and the purchasing want, we'll make those revisions and get it together and then hopefully get it out shortly. And the timeline and submission line will be based on when we get that final one out there.
So that being said,
We're kind of, make a motion to move this forward as well. And if they need to tweak some of the language, we can also tighten it up in the contract phase.
I got a motion by Director Baglio,
I'll second.
a second by Director Krieger. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries.
One thing, especially with the event management, it's gonna take, the timeline on this is kind of scary. If we don't get it out quickly, back and make some decisions, these folks are gonna be under the gun planning something that they may have 2 months to plan. So I just hope that we can turn this around quickly. Because we did everything we needed to do, right?
In case a tree needs to come from China. All right.
Couldn't release it until you had budgeted for it, so.
Yeah, and that's coming up.
Well, you allocated it now, so.
Correct.
All right, number 9. Number 9, 2018-19 goals and objectives. And I think those are there to lead us into number 10, correct?
Well, the goals and objectives came out of your Saturday work session and the revisions. I kind of tried to wordsmith the prior year's goals and objectives with the changes that were discussed at that meeting. You'll see those changes in red and the deletions to the right in the column of what was taken out and what was added in. These goals were taken to both the Consumer Marketing Committee and the Infrastructure Committee. They were both satisfied with the wording. So this document becomes part of the city budget document for the DDA section, and it also sets your goals and objectives, at least for another year. So if you're happy with what's in there, again, I'd just ask for a motion to approve the goals and objectives. If you want some changes, let me know.
Motion to approve the revised goals and objectives.
Motion by Director Yensley.
Support.
Support by Director Riley. Any discussion? Seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Okay, on to number 10, fiscal year 18-19 budgets, A, operating fund.
The operating fund, I think everyone's aware, is the funds raised through your millage levy. It's about 1.6 something annually on properties in the downtown. This portion that's in here is the area or the parcel values that are not captured by the development fund or the TIF district. So you'll see property tax revenues estimated at roughly $55,000 in terms of revenue. Then the expenditures are pretty standard in terms of operating. It's got some salary related benefits to the salary and staff. And then office supplies. Trees and shrubs are replanted based on what occurs and has to occur. Miscellaneous contracted services, you take care of the Star Dream sculpture on an annual basis, plus you have pest control program through Roses. It's about $160 a month. And then travel costs and
advertising legal notices, so it's really operational items. I don't have anything really more to add to that. There is a suggested resolution there if you support what's been laid out.
Director Safaya.
I'll move the resolution before us.
I'll second.
Motion by Director Safaya, second by Director Krieger. Any discussion or questions? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. All right. B, the Development Fund.
The Development Fund is the budget that is based on your tax income or revenue. I don't have revised figures yet from the assessor, so I've simply left it at what was planned for last year, or roughly 3.4 million. And then there's some interest, and then you'll see a transfer from Arts, Beats, and Eats. That's basically the reimbursement from the city, from the parking revenue. You've hit that number, I think, every year but one since it's operated. So you'll see a total estimated revenue of 3.5 million, roughly, 3.525. Again, there are some wages and benefits in here. The dollar amount in here includes DPS services that occur downtown. So if when DPS comes down and plows the snow off the sidewalks, they charge time to it. So it varies from year to year based on when they're here and how often they're here. So you'll see those numbers in there. Contracted worker services is Sean's downtown position as a downtown manager. I will say that I think at some point in the next month or so, the committee's going to have to meet and deal with how you want to proceed with renewing that contract or changing your relationship in some fashion. Outside legal counsel, I'm not anticipating any great dollar amount next year with anything at this point, so that's about 15,000. Miscellaneous contracted services at 630,000 includes Worry-Free and the maintenance program they provide downtown, which is planting all the flowers, shrubs, mowing the grasses, doing power washing, things like that under that contract. It also includes the holiday lights with English Gardens on an annual basis. I would point out that the Worry-Free contract now goes all the way down to 696 on Main Street for those medians and islands and things like that that are down there. Last year was the first year of that. It's my understanding there may be some dead materials that are going to have to get replanted in the island. So we've talked to Worry-Free about that. Secondly, we've also talked to Worry-Free because if the Royal Oak Civic Center project goes forward, a lot of the materials that they'd put around this area, we're not going to have them put around this area. So we may relocate where those occur and how those are maintained. So we're looking at that with them right now. Other items listed under miscellaneous contracted services, the infrastructure committee has talked about several that I've listed here. The electronic message center was part of the wayfinding program. You may recall that when that was bid, we got several bids back that used different video boards. So we dropped that portion from the wayfinding so we could rebid it, respec it, and get it back out. And I've allocated $150,000 towards that. The infrastructure committee has also talked about establishing an alley improvement program. Hasn't really identified a particular alley or what that would entail. I've simply put in a placeholder of about $100,000 to either have someone, once we identify an alley, come up with a plan and a cost estimate. Decorative streetlight program,
really, there's two things here. One, there was some discussion about changing out the decorative lights with LED lights that could change colors at various times of the year. I did not allocate enough to do the whole downtown. As the committee talked, we might have to pick a segment and see how it worked, whether it was 4th Street or something. So again, I've really just put a placeholder in as $100,000 as the committee moves forward. The next item was the hope that the infrastructure committee was looking at was installing some string lights across or over the street. I show 3 locations here, but the committee talked about potentially only doing 2 at this time, both on 5th Street right now, but that needs a lot more work. The estimate that was provided by English Gardens was $12,000 for all 3 locations that they had talked about. The last item that's identified here was adding hanging flower baskets north of 11 Mile Road up to past the hotel or up to Pingree. The DDA boundary does go up to Pingree, as you'll recall. And we estimated that at about 12,000 based on the number of hanging baskets and the estimate that Worry Free provided on the last segment. I don't have an actual estimate from them yet at this point, but we based it on the number of that we anticipate would be installing. Those are probably all the big changes in the budget item or the development fund. I've included electrical. There's $100,000 in for facade program. The promotions committee or the CMC. Again, Arts Beats and Eats sponsorship is in there. Spooktacular you just talked about as far as that RFP. The holiday event at $70,000, and then the advertising and marketing are listed all there. The one thing that's not in this is the $5,000 that you just allocated towards the chamber event. But does that occur this year or next year? Next year. What's the date on that?
No, it's in June, usually middle June.
The week before.
That'll be this year.
We won't need to do it.
Yeah, 'cause it doesn't go till July 1.
We'll take it out of the current year. Going down, just as a reminder, I think you've seen all the rest of his numbers. Transfer to the general fund includes your commitment to the Center Street parking deck, the new one, about $580,000 roughly a year, as well as the commitment to the ROK development at $737,000. So if my numbers are right, on the top of my head, it's 1.2 million.
And the drop in the transfer to auto parking is because of Lafayette.
No, excuse me, I back up. That's the police. Transfer to the general fund is your police commitment at 540. I'm sorry. The 580 is the Center Street deck.
Okay, got it. So the transfer to the general fund is the police and RLCC?
Yes.
Got it.
That's all I have. Again, there's a resolution if you support this going forward. It is a budget subject to revisions as we go through the year.
I'll move there's a resolution. I'll move the resolution.
All right, moved by Director Krieger.
Supported.
Supported by Director Riley. Discussion?
Did you want to include the 5,000 for the chamber?
Do we need to amend
It's
it?
out of this year.
Because it's happening
this
this
year.
year.
Oh, it's okay.
This year.
No,
Yeah.
that's coming out this year.
Okay.
Any discussion?
I think we've talked
Yeah.
about all these enough, and as
A lot.
Tim
Well-
mentioned, it can
Right.
move, so.
And I want to thank the committees, both, for getting these items all in order. And I think they're well-founded, so. Seeing no further discussion, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Committee updates. 11A, I think
think we talked about everything that we
did
did. We met on March 5th. Both Shelley's were there from the Chamber and the Farmers Market. We talked about Shelley's request. We just approved that tonight. We also talked with the Farmers Market about kind of minimizing the conflict between the tree lighting ceremonies that we have at the holiday time. We came up with somewhat of a solution. Shelley had to bring it back to her board and Don. But it sounds like they may scale back on their tree lighting portion of that event and keep it a shopping event. And we came up with a concept where we would, in addition to lighting just the Christmas tree on Washington, we're gonna talk to English Gardens about flicking the switch on all of the lights downtown. And the tentative date for that we came up with is the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
There's three. There's
Yeah.
3 dates. So one is the Saturday before
Thanksgiving.
and then or the Saturday after Thanksgiving, or the Thursday after Thanksgiving, which is the traditional time. I just wanted to add though, the Saturday after Thanksgiving is Small Business
Saturday.
That's a really competitive time of year between a lot of downtowns in terms of who can get the most foot traffic. So Royal Oak might have a competitive edge if it paired it with the tree lighting. So I know that the county has that contest, and I know that Royal Oak, Rochester, and Birmingham, among I think 2 others, were like the top 5 shopping destinations in terms of downtowns.
So that discussion's still ongoing, but that's what we talked about there. Am I missing anything? We talked about requirements for submitting requests for money. Sean's social media is doing great. I'm still working on getting you a credit card for that.
It has arrived.
Yes. And then obviously the budget increase that you guys just approved. So thank you for that. Any questions?
No questions.
We've heard enough from you today.
You're really, you're on mute. Although I do want to make one request as the chair of Mr. Yesbick. We're down a member on the Consumer Marketing Committee right now. And with these contracts coming in and you're tuned into events and the marketing.
You're an attorney.
I would like to have you at least until we fill our 9th spot here, if you could work with the Consumer Marketing Committee and look at these.
But we're not opposed to holding our meetings out of state.
We'll have to schedule the meetings about you being in town, but is that?
That would be fine, yes.
Okay, I do appreciate
Even though
that.
I don't think Gary likes me very much, but yes, I'll do it.
Well, we need all viewpoints. That's why it's important. So anyhow, no, it'd be great if you could be, especially looking at contracts and with your legalese, it'd be appreciated, so.
Charge Dyke McGossett rates? No, okay, just kidding.
Yeah. And Gary, I didn't even talk to you about this beforehand. Are you good with this?
I'm good with that.
Okay, good, okay. On the committee updates, B, the Infrastructure Committee.
I don't have anything new. Everything that was on our agenda, with the exception of the library, did come before us, and that got tabled until the park group meets to decide what their parameters are gonna be. So that got tabled, but everything else on our agenda were items that Mr. Twing just went through and we approved, and, the electronic message boards, the streetscapes, the hanging lights, worry-free. So everything else was already included in the budget that you guys have already approved. That's all I have, unless somebody's got a question.
Any questions? No. Okay. C, the Business Marketing Committee,
We took the month off.
for the first time in I don't know how
Yeah.
long. So so yeah, there was nothing last month at Business Marketing Committee. All right, on to number 12, unless anybody else has anything want to add on 11. If not, I guess committee updates, I will say that this coming Monday at 7 o'clock, I believe, is the first meeting of the Downtown Park Committee or Task Force.
Oh, this Monday at 7?
Monday at 7, right here, I believe.
Actually, really quick for business marketing, because we're gonna kick the parking deck space to you guys, right? I'm just thinking from a timing standpoint, think about that as well, because there's time obviously to do design work, drawings, permits, all that kind of stuff. If you want that open by a certain time of the year, if we do, a certain time of year, think about that when you're considering what to do.
Sure. Okay, thank you. All right, on to number 12, other business and reports. Downtown managers report. Sean?
Hey, let's see, start with, we discussed in detail the retail space. We can talk more about that at the next business marketing committee meeting, where we can refine that and hone that. Other news, early this month, I attended the Michigan Downtown Association's Lansing Day and Workshop. So earlier this month, it was 2 days. The first day was dedicated to getting up to date on all of the legislation that's going to be affecting TIF districts overall. So there's some changes coming down from Lansing in terms of how TIF districts will be reporting to the state. So we also got to talk to some legislators as well. I got to meet our state rep and have lunch with him, so it was good to see him up there. We talked about that, and he was a really big supporter of downtowns overall. And I talked to Senator Ken Horn, who was actually the author of the TIF reform, TIF reporting reform as well. So it was good to talk to him as well. As far as the workshop is concerned, I actually took a lot of valuable things away from it. There's two things I'd actually like to explore, and I'll probably be taking this to committees. The first thing is the concept of a commercial vacancy open house concept that some downtowns have been implementing to market a lot of their commercial vacancies, and they basically turn it into a big event, and they get the cooperation and participation of brokers and public and entrepreneurs, and they go you know, from vacancy to vacancy, and they get tours, and there's it's not only a lot of fun for a lot of people, but it helps raise awareness to a lot of the commercial opportunities that we have here. So I'm going to be exploring that and see if it's a viable concept for our downtown. The second thing was a session on how to prepare your downtown for construction projects and how to work with your businesses as well. So there were a lot of really good lessons that I'll be trying to implement in our downtown, and I'll be taking to our downtown Main Street stakeholders meetings. As an update, April is Autism Awareness Month, and I've been working with several members of the city staff and the Judson Center in terms of their event that they are doing on April 2nd. They've contracted with English Gardens to wrap some of the trees on 5th Street in blue, so they're going to have a Flip the Switch event on April 2nd. And that's to help raise awareness. They're also doing a thing where they're encouraging people to put blue lights in their windows to kind of turn the downtown blue. So I've talked to one of the board members of the 5th to see if their residents would be interested in participating in that as well. I think that would be a really striking effect to see the facade of that building, all the windows turn blue for that event, especially on the 2nd. So that's April 2nd at 6 p.m. on 5th Street in front of Hopcat and 5th Avenue. Good news to report, the Oakland County Planners Gathering, which was held at Mesa, was a very big success despite the weather that we had the night before. I was afraid we weren't going to have a very good turnout because we just had a bunch of snow dumped on us the night before, but a lot of people did show up. It was very well attended. I presented alongside James Krizan from the city and the Commission for the Arts Chair, Jason Gittinger, about public art. There's an article that was just released about it today, circulating through social media. So we were able to kind of put our best foot forward with a lot of other downtown communities here in Oakland County who wanted to learn from Royal Oak how they do public art down here. So it was a great event. So new businesses, I know that the word is already out. Desert Oasis will be in the old La Dolce space. They're supposed to open sometime this spring. I've been talking with Todd Fenton on a lot of the details on that. So they joined Freshie, who just opened, and Cream Blends, who just opened on 4th Street as well. So we are getting some new businesses coming in to fill those vacancies, and that's a very encouraging sign. So the downtown stakeholders meeting, I gave you the minutes or the summary at our last DDA board meeting. We have not had a stakeholders meeting since that. Because I was in Lansing, we delayed the meeting until the 22nd, so I'll be meeting with the downtown stakeholders tomorrow morning instead. So at our April 18th meeting of the DDA, there'll be 2 summaries that you guys will be presented with alongside with my report. And then next week, I will be attending the Main Street Now conference in Kansas City. So in my report, I list a lot of the sessions that I thought were important for me to attend. I figured a lot of the board members here would find them really interesting as well. A lot of things focusing on vacancies, retail attraction, the economic impacts of placemaking, so on and so forth. And then just as a reminder, the Oakland County Main Street Main Event Awards is going to be May 10th, and that is at the Flagstar Strand in Pontiac, and tickets are $35. It's actually really normal to see DDA board members show up to those, and it's a great event. You get to see what all kinds of other downtowns are doing throughout Oakland County, and they have an awards ceremony to it as well, so it's really competitive. So overall, it's a really good event, and then let me know if you're interested, and I can send you the link. I've been working with city staff on a Play Everywhere Challenge grant application. That's to do a couple of additional placemaking things in Eagle Plaza. So more news as that develops, but I think that there's some untapped resources that could enhance that space with a couple additional features. Makes it more family friendly as well. Could be a destination for families too. I'm continuing with downtown data collection as always. And then this quarter's Royal Oak Today is going to be out, and it's going to be the first issue that the DDA has its 2-page spread. It's going to have an article replete with pictures, and we're going to have a full-page ad in that as well. So I just spoke to Scott Marks today, so they're putting it together this week, so it should be out, I think, sometime in early April, so keep an eye out for it. Last two things, downtown maintenance, a lot of litter I've noticed lately, so tomorrow at the Main Street meeting I'm going to float the idea of doing a downtown cleanup on Earth Day, which is a Sunday morning, help us take care of a lot of the litter that's kind of been exposed from the huge thaws that we've had. So I think not only would it be a good thing in terms of downtown maintenance, I know we contract with it, but I also think it'd be a really good community building exercise as well to get the downtown property owners and the business owners together to kind of get sections of picking up litter and kind of creates a sense of ownership in the downtown as well, which I think is really important. Lastly, at the Consumer Marketing Committee, we talked about the future of the downtown website. So I've looked into one possible option. So I've talked to city staff and the IT director about the possibility of integrating our website in with the city site. This would not actually cost any money outside of maybe a few like regular maintenance fees that I think the community development department's already paying. But I think that would have brand consistency. So if you look at like how the farmers market is set up and how the library is set up, there's this consistent brand for all of those different institutions under the city banner. This would be an option that could keep that consistent brand. It would allow the website to be more of a communications tool rather than just a business database, which is what it's currently serving as. So it would be, I think, more geared towards marketing and advertising and outreach and basically getting our communications out to people that are essential rather than it just being a repository of information with business information, which Google already has that information in their databases too. So a lot of people use that stuff as well. So it would be one less step. So that is one possible option when determining the future of the downtown website. And with that, that concludes my report.
Sean, quick question.
Sure.
So right now, we're advertising in the Royal Oak Today paper. Have you looked at other papers outside of the city? You know, like for example, I get some paper at my house, and I always see advertisements for Berkeley's DDA.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which I think that's cool. So I'm just curious if you looked at other outside.
Yeah, we have talked about, there's a West Bloomfield today too, and they don't really have a destination downtown either, so we thought that might be a good option to get our information out there as well. I have sat down with, even greater than just looking at print, but I've sat down with Imagine as of last week, talking about what we could do to advertise in their theaters. If you look at like the pre-movie showings and stuff, I think it would be really cool to see an ad for downtown and all of the amenities that we offer, especially if there's a captive audience across the street too. So I've looked into that. I've done a lot of research talking to the Metro Times to try to get a regular recurring ad there. I've talked to Michigan Radio, and I've gotten a quote to be one of the regular recurring sponsors there to see how much that costs. So I've looked into a lot of different avenues, and I've even put together some costs. I didn't want to move forward with a lot of that stuff yet because we've been talking about the marketing and advertising firms. So I wanted to see how that gets resolved and then maybe hand it to them, or depending on what happens with that, kind of take those steps after that issue was resolved. So.
Makes sense. Then, quick question. Tim, do we have Worry Free coming out anytime soon to do another?
April 2nd.
April 2nd, because I had that on my list too, because I noticed it was,
Well,
especially
they've been
St.
out-
Patty's Day. It got
They've been out
last-
twice. I think we sent them out over the winter, and their normal contract starts April 2nd,
Okay.
that Monday. First Monday in April.
Perfect. Anything else for Sean?
I have a question. What is rip-off and duplicate?
So Rip Off and Duplicate was the name of the workshop that I went to in Lansing. So it was a number of sessions that were presented by people who had done projects in their downtowns, and they were presenting how they did it, encouraging the attendees to take that back to their towns and replicate the same things. So, so two of the ones that I found very appealing were the commercial vacancy open houses and then the surviving construction projects.
Anything else?
Move to adjourn.
Oh, we got one more little item, just to,
Oh, we do?
yeah, just to.
Easy, Mike.
I was gonna second it.
No action required.
No action required, it's just there,
thought Sean
it's
just
it's
wanted
just
to-
there,
There, so-
it's just there for information. We'll go through it really fast, I promise.
I'm good with that. I apologize, I'm sorry.
That's just there for informational purposes, but
Didn't mean to leave anybody out.
that's okay, you know, so I don't think anybody has anything to say that, so.
I will move to adjourn now that we've discussed that item.
Motion by Director Sophia, second by Director Yasbit. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, night.